Hello and welcome back to the Squirrel Heed YouTube channel, and welcome to match week number 8 back in the Premier League after the abysmal internationals that we've had. And I'm looking forward to this weekend because we've got some good games, not so good games, but we've got an entertaining weekend of football all around. No more internationals for a little while. I'm so happy about that. We're going to kick straight into the predictions, straight into the games, and we're kicking it off with Chelsea versus Leicester. Two teams who have a pretty similar form, just in different ways. They've got 2 losses each, 3 wins and 1 draw in their last 6 games. Now, it does obviously look like that Chelsea are starting to pick up a little bit of steam, starting to put together a couple of wins here. They've obviously had some pretty bad losses as well. They've had a bad loss against Liverpool, though they did show a bit more fight in the second half, and then they didn't show anything against Arsenal. But in between that, in the Cup, they had a fight back against Leicester, and against Hull, they put on a professional display of a 2-0 victory there as well. Leicester, on the other hand, seem to be prioritising the Champions League, and why not? They won the title last year. They're going to be wanting to go for a bit more silverware that they haven't had before, and they're doing it in the Champions League as well. Won both games there. Lost against Chelsea in the 3rd round of the Cup. Lost against Man United pretty badly as well, and then got a bore draw against Southampton. Now, obviously, the last time these two met was in the Cup, and Chelsea did come out on top, winning 4-2 after extra time, I believe it was. I might be wrong on that one. Could be wrong on that one. Leicester were winning 2-0, and then Chelsea score 4 unanswered goals. Could the same thing happen again? Absolutely it could. And I think the way things are going at the moment, I think Chelsea are going to be looking to get more on the up. I think Diego Costa's had a pretty good international break. I think Leicester having that little stumbling block. If they'd won against Southampton, I would be predicting Leicester to win this game. But I do think that Chelsea are going to nick this game. I don't think they're going to tear the team apart. I don't think they're going to run away with it. But I do think they're going to put on a professional display, really linking up those forward players, the likes of Hazard, Willian, and obviously Diego Costa. This is all obviously pending on whoever's fit. I don't know who is injured or fit in other clubs at the moment. So that's just where I'm at with that. Leicester could come out and they could blitz them. I'm not entirely sure that's going to work, though. It does seem that in the Champions League, Leicester's tactics of last season are working. In the Premier League, not so much. And I think that is where they're going to struggle. They're going to come unstuck. John Terry's could be back in for this game as well, for Chelsea. And that is where I think that this will be the big difference. I do see Chelsea winning it. I can only see it being a 1-0. I don't think it's going to be very dominant, but it will be a 1-0 victory for Chelsea in my mind. Coming up next, we've got Bournemouth versus Hull. And Hull, while having a very good start to the season, picking up 7 points out of 3, I think it was, in their first 4 games. I think I might have got that one wrong. I think they only had that loss to Manchester United, I think, possibly. They haven't really kicked on from there. They have come up against some difficult opposition, though. Coming up against Man United, coming up against Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. They haven't had the easiest of opposition. They got a 2-1 victory over Stoke, but who isn't winning against Stoke right now? No offence, Stoke fans, but that's just where the Stoke team is right now. You got Bournemouth, on the other hand, are picking up some okay results. Not necessarily, they've never been a team in the Premier League, like obviously since last year. They haven't been a team that's going to necessarily blow teams away. They got a good 1-0 win over Everton in the Premier League. They got a draw against Watford. It's going to be one of those games where I think that the quality of Bournemouth, and I say the quality, I mean like the quality tactics and the way that they play, and the way that Hull can play, it depends. If Hull come out like they did in the first 2 games of the season, and they really hammered the other team, they could get something from this game, but I don't see that happening. I think it's going to go Bournemouth's way. I think Bournemouth are going to be able to outplay them, stretch the play. I just think that Bournemouth are going to have a bit too much for Hull in this game, and I think that Bournemouth are going to come away with a 1-0 victory. Coming up next is Manchester City versus Everton, and I'm really looking forward to watching this game, if I can find somewhere to watch it, because it's not actually going to be on UK TV. So I'm hoping that I can find somewhere to watch it. Friggin' Manchester City have been blitzing every single competition right up until the Celtic game in the Champions League, where they drew 3-3 with Celtic, and then they lost in the Premier League to Tottenham, coinciding with Kevin De Bruyne being injured, that linchpin throughout the pitch. He can work in anywhere, and his work rate is unbelievable. His technique as a football player, he's one of the best players in the Premier League right now, and he is one of, if not the best player that Man City have, alongside the likes of Aguero. When they don't have him, it's unbelievable what has happened. yes, getting a 3-3 draw against Celtic, very highly entertaining for a neutral fan when I'm looking at that game and I'm looking at Celtic just putting goals past Man City coming back and drawing the game. I'm just looking at that and thinking, wow, that is unbelievable. Then they go and lose to Tottenham, and Man City weren't really in that game. They had a good couple of chances that they didn't really take. Tottenham took their chances and they were very, very good. Everton, on the other hand, haven't had the best games lately. They lost against 2-0 against Norwich in the Cup. They lost then against Bournemouth 1-0, where they weren't really in that game either. And they got a draw against Crystal Palace. They are going to be wanting to prove a lot against the top team, the champions elect in Manchester City. They're going to be wanting to do something. Lukaku's going to obviously want to be hitting a lot of top form. It's going to be difficult for Everton to do that. I still think whether De Bruyne is going to be fit or not, I'm not entirely sure. If he is, different ball game. Man City will most likely clinch this one quite easily. I don't think it's going to be an easy one. I do think that Manchester City, especially at home, I think that they are going to win this game. And I think it could be a 2-1 victory to Man City. I think that Everton will score, but it does depend on who Man City actually have fit. If they have De Bruyne fit and he's back there, I'm not entirely sure. There's word that he's going to be back for the Barcelona game. Maybe so. Maybe that would be more of a priority because that's one hell of a game to come up as well. But still, I do think that Man City are going to have more than Everton. I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable 2-1 victory for Man City. Coming up next, we have West Brom versus Tottenham, and they are coming up. West Brom are coming up against one of the informed teams in the Premier League right now. It's unbelievable, and I do think genuinely that West Brom are going to struggle. West Brom will be pretty good defensively, no doubt, but they are not going to be able to keep out that front line. And I do think, if I am correct, and I think I have seen an article saying that Tottenham have an injury boost in Harry Kane coming back into training, which, is he going to start? Who knows? But even if he doesn't start and he comes on later on, that's another presence up front. But while Harry Kane hasn't been there, they've still been able to get wins. And that is the best thing so far for Tottenham. Not going to look good for West Brom, whose best victory so far has been against West Ham, and they beat them 4-2. That's their best one. West Ham haven't been the best team at all in the Premier League, been one of the worst teams in the Premier League so far. I think that Tottenham are going to find this one pretty easy. I think especially whether they have Harry Kane or not, I don't think it's going to matter. I think Tottenham are going to be able to walk out of this one at least 2-0, could stretch to 3-0. I think West Brom will struggle to score. If you look at those games, apart from the Monaco game and the Middlesbrough game, Tottenham haven't conceded, and they played against Man City in that one as well, who were scoring for fun. So I think that Tottenham have got this game, and I think they could go 2 or 3-0. Coming up next is one of those games where you've got two of the worst form teams in the Premier League right now. Look at those results there. You've got 4 losses and 2 draws for Stoke. Okay, maybe they're starting to settle out a little bit, and maybe they'll start to turn those draws into slight wins. Then you've got Sunderland, who can do things like going 2-0 up against Crystal Palace, and then they lose 3-2 in the last minute of the game. It's unbelievable what is going on with Sunderland at the moment. But both teams, let's be honest, both teams are equally being pretty damn bad. I mean, it's unreal that these two are meeting now when they're probably both in the same vein of form, which isn't very good at all. And it's got all the makings of one of those draws where the play isn't very well, that either team won't be necessarily connecting passes. Stoke will probably be better in the final third, but they won't be able to put the ball in the back of the net. And as you can see where I'm going with this, I just don't think either of these teams are going to score against each other, and I do think it's going to be a 0-0. It's not going to be one that I'm going to be wanting to review. I'll probably review it and just say it was 0-0. Unless something ridiculous happens with like Stoke or Sunderland, I can only predict it's going to be a 0-0. Or draw. Coming up next, we've got two teams that couldn't have further apart fortunes. In that you look at that form that Arsenal have got, and then you look at the form that Swansea have got. It's unbelievable. Now Swansea, as I've said about a couple of teams as well, look at those teams they played against. Leicester, they got a draw in the Premier League against Chelsea, then they lost against Southampton, lost against Man City twice in 2 different competitions, and then lost against us. In a competitive match, they had a good first half. We had a better second half. Let's be honest, that's pretty much all there is to say about it. Then you've got Arsenal, who really, really are doing very, very well. Apart from the PSG game and Hull game, they've been putting goals in for fun, obviously apart from the Burnley one, but they fought so hard in that one to get that final goal in. As controversial as people see it, they have done. I mean, look at that. In their past 4 games, they've scored 10 goals. Unbelievable stuff. Add in the Hull game, they've scored 14 goals in their last 5 games. That is unbelievable stuff right there, and that is what is making Arsenal quite something in that top 4 area. Hopefully for them, they'll be wanting to challenge for the title, which they should be with the players that they've got, the quality they've got in their team. They should be up there challenging for the title, no doubt. And I think that this is going to be one of those games where it's going to be a bit like the Hull game for Arsenal. I think they are going to be able to blitz Swansea at some point. I think they're going to be a lot more organised. I think they'll probably maybe take a little bit what we did in the second half, and they're going to be able to either, maybe they start Olivier Giroud, nice aerial presence up front, and they'll maybe get a couple of goals there. If not, who cares? Because then you've got the likes of Iwobi, Theo Walcott, who didn't have the best England game in the last one, but for Arsenal, he's been doing very well. And then you've got Sanchez in that little false 9. You've got Ozil, who can pull the strings. They've got so much quality in this game that I think, and I am going to go for it, and I think Arsenal will get a 3-1 victory at home against Swansea. Coming up next, we've got Crystal Palace versus West Ham United, and West Ham need a miracle. And I say that because I think Crystal Palace are starting to show why they went out and bought the likes of Christian Benteke, because they will score you goals and they'll pop up out of anywhere. And with the way I said it when Crystal Palace faced Stoke, the same thing applies here. If West Ham, over the international break, haven't sorted out their defence and being able to deal with aerial balls and everything like that, especially with someone like Christian Benteke and that headed goal he scored against Everton, and then you've got the fact that Benteke just went and broke the World Cup qualifying record of scoring the fastest goal in like 8 seconds or something, then finishes it off and scores a hat-trick. You've got Benteke, who is in absolute form right now, and if he can bring that form back to Crystal Palace, dangerous times ahead for West Ham, and that is what I'm predicting. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory because I still don't think that West Ham are going to be able to put it together to be able to score enough goals and keep Crystal Palace away from there. I think their defence will just crumble under the pressure of Christian Benteke, and I think it's going to be a good win, 2-0 win for Crystal Palace. Coming up next, we've got Middlesbrough versus Watford, and Middlesbrough had a good start to the season, but they have drifted away against different quality teams, from the likes of Fulham to West Brom getting a draw there, West Ham getting a draw there, and then losing against Palace, Everton and Tottenham. Not very good form at all for Middlesbrough, and they have got to be starting to look at that table where they are right now. We're getting into the 8th game of the season, where the table will start to shape up a lot more, and you'll start to see where teams are battling it out in the table. You'll start to see the top 6 shape up. You'll see that middle ground bit as well, where people will be fighting between 7th and maybe 13th, 14th, and then everything else below that is going to be involved in a relegation battle. And at the moment, Middlesbrough, I don't see them getting out of it. Watford have the potential in that front line. You saw what they did against West Ham, what they did against Man United. They could have had boatloads of goals in that Man United game as well. They came away with a 3-1 victory, 2-2 against Bournemouth, and then you see how they played against Burnley. They have the potential to not turn up either. It could go either way. I think with the front line and the way that Watford have been playing lately, I do think Watford are going to sneak this one. I don't think Middlesbrough are going to have enough. They could surprise everybody. But I think that Watford are going to get this one, and I think it's going to be a 1-0 victory to Watford. And the final game of the prediction show today is Southampton versus Burnley. Southampton are in very, very good form. Haven't conceded any goals in their last 6 games. Burnley, on the other hand, only have 1 win, and that was against Watford. Other than that, they've lost against Accrington, lost against Chelsea, drew against Hull, lost against Leicester, lost against Arsenal. So they've had a little bit of different competition there, and they haven't necessarily capitalised on the teams that they came up against. Hull, at the time when they came up against them, weren't in the best vein of form. They really could have took advantage of that. They're still going to be missing Andre Gray, I believe, up front. So that's going to be another blunting of the knife for Burnley. And I think that Southampton are just looking so good at the moment. They are not conceding goals. They are looking good going forward, especially when they bring on Charlie Austin. Whether they start him or not, he just looks good whenever he's on the pitch. And I do think that's going to be the difference here. I think Southampton are going to be a lot more clinical. They're going to be testing that defence all game. And I just don't think Burnley are going to have enough to challenge Southampton this time. And I do think it's going to be Southampton 2-0. And that is my predictions for this weekend. The Liverpool versus Man United game for Monday Night Football. I've done a prediction for that as well. I'll leave that in the description below. You can check that one out. Full, nice prediction. I've tried to do it like a good lineup prediction and everything like that we could do because we don't know who's going to be fit. But check that one out. Drop a like on it. that would be absolutely amazing. And if you can, and if you've liked it today, drop a like on this video. It would be absolutely amazing if you could do that. And the same thing would go for if you could subscribe to the channel as well. That would be also very, very awesome. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment below. How do you think this weekend's going to go? Let me know what you think. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will catch you later.